I want to ask a very funny questions to our international affairs commentator, because I know he has a good study on Vladimir Putin. Sir, I know this gentleman doesn't use a smartphone. This doesn't gentleman doesn't, I mean Vladimir Putin doesn't have any social media account. He doesn't watch television. He doesn't listen radios. He only signs and reads the paper his designated officers brings to him. What kind of person he is, but he is a threat for the whole world.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kanchan. I was listening to our distinguished guests upon this matter. One thing I also picked out was that the US had approved 322 million arms sale, of which 172 million is surface-to-air missiles and 150 million is for armored vehicle systems. It is now, as Rashad Bhai, you also said, it's a war between US and Russia, and Ukraine is the one, we call it the Lamb of God, the one that is being sacrificed in the face of the whole world. However, let's look at how this devastation can end up in. We've seen US and Japan, historically they have ended the World War II with each other bombing Pearl Harbor as well as Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and that is the cessation of the war that happened. It would be devastating in modern times in the 21st century to see such an event taking place between NATO and in terms Ukraine and Russia. Russia does have a very dangerous system called the dead hand system, which is, if in the face of a nuclear strike on Russia, no person would need to press any trigger before a nuclear strike from Russia would commence. So that just shows us how dangerous Russia can be. And of course, you talked about the leadership of Russia, Vladimir Putin, his background, if you look at it. He went through the scales, went through the positions, varied positions in the Russian government before assuming his role from Boris Yeltsin into the president of Russia. Of course, whenever he needs to talk to the entire global stage, he will only trust the Russian state media to carry forward his message. Of course, much of the Western media does take his message and does brandish him like a dictator, like a terrorist, such and so forth. However, who are the friends of Russia? If you look at me, I can tell you Iran is a good friend of Russia. There's oil and trade between the both. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, he is actually one of the younger leaders in the global stage, who was mourning his loss of the North Korean soldiers who were lost during this war as well. And of course, China as well is there as an immediate neighbor to Russia, both who are enemies of the US indirectly. So once again, right now the war remains continuous. Civilian lives are still being lost every day, and this is the only war front that the US is incapable of stopping by the means of trade, right, as they tried in the India-Pakistan issue. But much of it, US is gaining in one stances where they're testing their weapons for the major companies. We have Northrop Grumman, we have Boeing, we have a lot of other countries who benefit from a war front actively elsewhere other than America. But it is still it's been a long fight. It's been 3.5 years, and it only comes to show that people will go to any means to test military infrastructure before understanding the human aspect of losing life. And of course, Ukraine has lost almost 35% of their land to those who are loyalists to Russian regime. Of course, right now the war is still continuing, and much of the lives are being lost.